Welcome to another episode of Grammar is Power, Answer Key Edition. In this video, we'll walk through the answers to the identifying and correcting faulty parallelism and faulty comparison exercise. But first, a quick review. By parallel, we mean that we need to use the same grammatical structure for two or more parts of a sentence that are similar in function. Parallel elements might be single words, for example, 2 or 3 adjectives. They might be phrases, such as 2 or 3 prepositional phrases in a row, all modifying the same noun or verb, or 2 or 3 clauses in a row. To avoid faulty comparison problems, we need to compare similar type things. We can't, for instance, compare an idea or object to a person. We need to make the comparison clear and unambiguous. In other words, we can't leave our sentences open to possible misreadings because of elliptical structures or the reader's unfamiliarity with our context. And we need to use the right form of adjectives and adverbs for the number of people or things compared: positive, comparative, or superlative degree. You might want to make brief notes on your handouts to help you explain why you missed something. This metacognitive practice will help you learn more quickly than simply writing down the correct answers. And here we go. Number 1. Because the sentence uses the correlative conjunctions both and, what follows each one has to be in the same grammatical structure. Here we have a predicate adjective following both, but a verb phrase and direct object following and. We can replace the verb phrase with hungry. It's possible to edit the first item, but you would need to remove or replace the were in front of both so that you could write a verb phrase and direct object after both. For instance, something like the hobbit was surprised by the arrival of guests who both had not been invited to the party and hadn't eaten breakfast. Number 2. In sentence number 2, the dwarves, the subject, complete 3 actions. The first 2 have direct objects followed by prepositional phrases. The third has a single adverb. It's not necessary that the exact same words be used for parallelism. Here, though, the writer repeated all 3 times to emphasize the extreme extent of the visitor's impact on the hobbit's life. Notice that there isn't the definite article the before afternoon, but there is a the with the first 2 direct objects. That's because some nouns need articles and some don't. Number 3. First, the wizard is one of the people in the hobbit hole, so he can't be compared to himself. This coordinating conjunction and joins 3 items that have to be in the same grammatical structure. The first is an adverb clause. Subordinating conjunction, subject, verb, and adverbial prep phrase. It tells when the wizard has to duck his head. Third item follows the same pattern and also tells when he has to duck. But the second item is only the adverb prep phrase. So to fix the faulty parallel structure requires adding a subordinating conjunction, subject, and verb. Number 4. There are several different ways to correct the faulty parallelism in the first part of the sentence. Treasure and fame are both objects of the preposition for. So one quick fix is to eliminate the infinitive to get and transform revenge into an object. We can move the infinitive, about to set off on their quest to get treasure, fame, and revenge, thereby turning all the nouns into direct objects. But to get isn't particularly strong, so the sentence is stylistically better without it. For the previous sentences, we know that there are 13 dwarves and a wizard in the party, so the superlative degree is needed to describe Bilbo. Number 5. Because the verb trust follows the correlative conjunction neither, a verb must also follow the nor as well to maintain parallel structure. We could move trust to the other side of neither, making skills and fortitude the direct objects without having to repeat the verb, because they trust neither Bilbo's burglary skills nor his fortitude. Both have possessive adjectives before the noun, Bilbo's and his. The coordinating conjunction or joins an infinitive and its direct object on one side, but a dependent clause on the other. We can add the infinitive and remove the subject-verb combination. We could also rewrite the first part of the dependent clause instead. The dwarves do not expect that he will do much or that he can survive the journey. Number 6. As there are only 2 people in the contest, we can't use the superlative degree for better. Boxing announcers err when they say, "May the best man win," because there are only 2 fighters in the ring. The coordinating conjunction and joins 2 predicate adjectives, each with an adverb, and a prepositional phrase. This faulty parallelism isn't as straightforward to fix as previous errors because we can't say more murderous. Some adjectives and adverbs are absolutes. They can't be qualified. For example, unique means one of a kind, so something can't be more unique than something else. Gollum is either murderous or not. In this case, we can drop the last part. It's a bit redundant with more dangerous anyway. Number 7. Even if you don't yet know the name of the ing structures in this sentence, you can see that both sides of the coordinating conjunction and are not the same. Because you do know adverb clauses, you might have turned the first group of words into an adverb clause. But then the original verb doesn't make sense, so we have to move it. Another way to correct the faulty parallelism is to turn saves into an ing to match returning. This approach would result in returning from the tunnels and saving his companions from a giant spider changes the dwarf's attitude. The ings become subjects. In the second independent clause, we have the correlative conjunctions not only and but also. Therefore, the structure that comes after the first has to be the same as what comes after the second. They precedes the conjunction here, so we can't have a subject following but also. Number 8. The original sentence compares Bilbo's capacity to the dwarfs. Since we can't compare an abstract quality to people, we have to correct the problem. One way is identified here. Repeat capacity for clarity. We could also use the demonstrative adjective that as an antecedent for capacity. Gandalf believes that Bilbo's capacity for heroism is much greater than that of the dwarves. Greater is in the correct degree because the writer is comparing Bilbo's capacity to the collective capacity of the dwarves. There are two capacities involved, so the comparative degree is correct. The second independent clause uses the unusual correlative conjunctions not and but. Whatever structure comes after the not has to be the same structure as comes after the but. Because the second is a dependent clause, we need to add who to make the last group of words fit the sentence. The two parallel elements are be Bilbo and be Gandalf. Then the sentence concludes with the rest of the predicate. The writer could have made a different choice to express the idea of this clause. The dwarves do not believe it will be Bilbo who assures their success, semicolon. They believe it will be Gandalf. This type of response includes an elliptical element. With two semicolons in the sentence, the writer will probably want to break it up. Number 9. To correct the faulty parallelism in this simple sentence, we can change the verb phrase in the third element into a noun that functions as the direct object. This sentence is a good example of how taking parallelism too far can stifle expression. The prepositional phrase of his fellow travelers helps clarify what kind of respect, but the first two direct objects don't have prepositional phrases. That's because the first two are internal traits that don't require further explanation. The writer could connect courage and confidence with the coordinating conjunction and, creating a new independent clause for the second half. Something such as, in addition, he earns the respect of his fellow travelers. This change separates his internal change from his outward change, but some might argue this phrasing is too wordy. Number 10. Bilbo is a member of the group, so he can't be more prepared than himself. Even if you don't know the name of the to plus a verb structure, it's an infinitive, you can see that to scout, steal, and to notice don't all match. We can either add the to in with the steal or remove the to with notice, thereby creating elliptical infinitive constructions. The to can be implied. See an example of this type of correction in number 12. Number 11. The sentence includes three descriptors for the dragon. Since the first two are adjectives, we can easily change the third one to be an adjective also. Does the dragon love his treasure more than he loves the dwarves? Or does the dragon love the treasure more than the dwarves love their treasure? While the context of the story tells us it is the second, the elliptical elements create a grammatically ambiguous construction. Beautifulest isn't a word. While the sentence doesn't clearly state that there are more than two cups, it seems logical that a dragon would have a lot of treasure. That's what dragons do. But if you want to argue that more beautiful works, that's okay. Number 12. Number 12 begins with another ambiguous comparison. Does Bilbo value gold less than he values the dwarves? Or does he value gold less than the dwarves value gold? As with number 11, the meaning might be assumed from the context. However, grammatically this is considered an error. We can use an elliptical construction do instead of values gold. Either works. Bilbo is one of the people receiving gold, so he can't have a smaller share than he himself receives. His share is compared to the collective shares of the others, so the comparative smaller is correct. Here, in order to sets up three different infinitive bases: return, regain, and right. The to can be implied for the second and third terms, or you can add a to in front of both of them. Compare this correction to the one in number 10 to see the different ways to correct parallelism errors with infinitives. If you still have questions about an answer or concept from this exercise, be sure to meet with your teacher as soon as possible to discuss it before the class moves on to the next topic. And that concludes this episode of Grammar is Power, Answer Key Edition.